So the defense here is saying that, the court should limit media coverage of the case to protect Sixth Amendment interests, and the court should not permit the media to use cameras to permit unfairly prejudicial coverage of Mr. Kohberger or harass courtroom participants. So unfairly prejudicial coverage. And what they're referring to here is, there's been all these different articles that I'm sure a lot of us have seen. I recognize quite a few of these. Here, let me expand that for you, and then put a 1, everybody, if you recognize some of these articles here. Let me see if I can give you a better view of that. But put a 1 there if you I recognize that Nancy Grace one on the right. But the defense is saying, they're arguing that they don't want cameras to be allowed because it's basically not good for Bryan, right? There's all this media coverage out there, and they're saying things, in the media in a negative light toward Bryan, right? Is what they're saying. And I have some thoughts on that I do want to mention here before I'm done. But they're actually going into great detail here. Let me show you. Let me get that back to normal size for us. They're going into great detail about all of these things that have been written and posted online, and they're referencing YouTube as well, right? We're all guilty of it here, talking about the case, and that's what they're actually referring to here. They're saying, that following each of Mr. Kohberger's court appearances, numerous social media posts have been made regarding him through Facebook, YouTube, TikTok, podcasts. Each video attempts to analyze Mr. Kohberger's demeanor by observing his body language from one court appearance and describing him using phrases such as cold iciness. It looks like he's just filled with darkness and hate, and he keeps getting creepier, among numerous other phrases. So they're referencing these things in their argument for why the cameras shouldn't be allowed. So that's pretty much their stance here is they should not permit the media to use cameras. And they're referencing all of this kind of bias against Bryan. Agree, Angel. Yeah, I do. I think that we should be allowed. And when we talk about, so here's where they're referencing, the defense is actually referencing the Vallow Daybell case. So, basically saying in the present case, Mr. Kohberger's actions are heavily scrutinized as self-proclaimed experts utilize audio and video footage from courtroom proceedings to make assumptions regarding his body language, his character. And then they reference, YouTube videos, and they're comparing it to kind of what happened in the Vallow case, where the cameras were zooming in on Lori Vallow, and there was all this analyzing being done on her as well. So they're kind of using that to support their argument. And there were some kind of rulings in the Vallow case that the prosecution or the state is trying to also leverage here in their argument for controlling the amount of cameras. They're not as hard stance. It seems like they're leaning towards no, they don't want cameras, but they're not taking as hard of a stance as the defense is here regarding it. They're kind of more saying, hey, we're going to leave it up to the court, but here's some of our concerns with the cameras. Yeah, Bradley. So it's a great point. So if he wouldn't look so creepy, he doesn't even make an attempt at looking relatable in every way. So, and let's think about it. Imagine, put yourself in as an innocent person in his shoes with, the amount of coverage of this case. It's so high profile. He's absolutely aware of you know, how popular and high profile this case is. It's no secret. And here you are, you're sitting in jail for a year as the suspect of committing this heinous crime. This isn't, you know, self-defense. This is a horrible crime. And all of these things are going around online about you, right? And you see these things happening, and you're just going to sit there in jail for a year and act the way Bryan's acting. I do think that's strange. And just sitting there kind of, you know, cold, stoic look, and, you know, not any emotion, and, you know, not making any attempt to show innocence. And there's other things that he could be doing to show innocence, but I mean, you just sit and stare straight ahead and yes and no. I don't know. You know, I mean, if I were sitting there in his shoes and I were being accused of this crime and I were innocent, I'd be doing everything I could to get out of jail. First of all, I wouldn't want to be sitting in there for a year. So I'd be doing everything I could. You know, how about a polygraph? If Bryan's innocent, right? Where's the request for a polygraph test? Get me out of jail. Hey, prosecution, you've got the wrong guy. Give me a polygraph test. You'll see I'm not lying to you. I'm on your side. I'm supposed to be a law enforcement guy. You got the wrong guy. I'm sitting in jail for a year. What do we got to do? Take my DNA. Give me a polygraph test and get me out of here. Let me help you catch this guy. You got the wrong guy, and the right guy's out there still. Where is all that? Instead, he just shows up. Oh, I'm cool with just sitting in jail for a year. Keep my head down. Yes, I understand my charges. I'll see you in October. I mean, give me a break, right? How many of us, if you were innocent of this crime, would just be sitting there going along with, oh, I'll be exonerated on appeal, you know, 7 years from now. I'm cool with sitting in prison. I'm innocent. But, you know, don't go chasing the other guy. I'll just sit here while we work it out in the trial. I mean, what's going on? What innocent person would act that way? It's inadmissible in a court of law, but what it would do, it's a great point. Of course, it's inadmissible, but what it would do is it would tell the prosecution, it would tell law enforcement that they have the wrong guy. Law enforcement, you know, if he took a polygraph test and it cleared him and they said, hey, where were you? And he said, oh, here's where I was. Here's what I was doing. Here's my polygraph results. I'm telling the truth. Law enforcement they're going to step back and they're going to revisit that evidence that they have, and they're going to be questioning it, right? They're not just going to ignore that. So that's what I'm saying. If you're innocent and you're sitting where he's at, you're scratching and clawing, you're pleading to get out of there and to prove your innocence any way you can. So, you know, he's also kind of complaining about, you know, or the defense is complaining about the analyzing of his actions in the courtroom and those things. Well, yeah, you know, you're part of one of the highest profile cases, and people are analyzing your every movement. They're not analyzing his every movement from a perspective of, you know, whoa, this guy's weird. I think we're all analyzing it because we're looking for answers. And we're looking at this guy and we're saying, how is he going to react to these charges that they're reading to him? Where's the emotion? Who, you know, is one of the names, does he react with a little bit more? Because he's just sitting there. And so, yeah, we're looking for any little thing to show his innocence. Show me something, Bryan. Show me something to give me an alibi. Look at the camera, right? And shake your head and put your hands up and be like, it's not me. You got the wrong guy. Where is that if you're really, really innocent? Your DNA is at the crime scene, so you've got to explain that. And if you're innocent, that's a question you're going to have to address. What is your answer to that question? Give it to law enforcement so they can look into it and get you out of there. You're innocent, right? So if you don't want to be analyzed in the media, don't have your DNA on a knife sheath under a murder victim, first of all, right? If you don't want to have people question you, do your very best for that not to happen. And if it does happen and you weren't there or whatever, you'd think there would be an explanation or an alibi or something there. Now, on top of the knife sheath, there's all this other evidence, right? But I'm just saying, if you don't want the attention, don't be connected to a murder. Unfortunately, you are, and so you're going to get the attention. You're going to get analyzed right now. But it's not necessarily saying we're looking for something bad. We could also be looking for a sign of innocence. Show me something. So there's another document here that the defense is kind of using, and they're referencing a bunch of different articles and things that were written by things like the New York Post and things like that, and they're talking about basically things that appears to lean in a negative light toward Bryan. So families of Bryan Kohberger's victims will seek death penalty. So they're going to present to the court, and this motion here is they're just saying, hey, court, we want you to take notice of all of this media coverage, because this is going to support our argument that they're going to be presenting here to the court in regards to the cameras being allowed in the case. And they want to shut that down. They don't want that to happen. And so they're going to reference all of this media out there that's showing Bryan in a negative light or implying guilt and things like that to support their argument. So like I mentioned, the prosecution is also responding here to the camera debate. And again, they're saying, hey, we're going to leave it up to the judge, but we suggest that we use the state of Idaho versus Lori Vallow as guidance in the decision. So they're kind of leaning toward, I think, not having cameras, but they're being respectful here, and they're leaving it, they're not taking as hard of a stance like I mentioned. And their concerns, they list some concerns that they have with the court, the cameras being in the courtroom, and their concerns are around things like witnesses. Again, they want to protect, thank you so much, Grant. They want to protect witness identities, right? And so cameras, things like that. They also mention, a witness could see another witness's testimony when everything's covered on the media. And so it becomes just harder to get a fair trial, right? Both sides are in agreement in that, with the cameras and all that, it does make it harder to get a fair trial because there's more exposure to data and information that could sway a potential witness and things like that, or a juror. So they're both kind of in agreement on the media piece and the cameras. Fingers crossed, though, that something changes, and maybe they just allow maybe some limited amount in there, and they control it. They edit it, make sure it's not really, they could blur out the witnesses, or have the camera pointing the other way, or just do audio. I don't know, but yeah, I really appreciate that 5, Grant. $11.11. Yeah, Harlot. So going back to check out the scene. Yeah, that's definitely possible. Expecting police, and that you made me think of my next video or live. I don't know if I'm just gonna make it into a video or do a live, but I have actually an alternate theory I want to share about kind of how things unfolded. So more to come on that. But I was debating on which one to talk about tonight, actually. So back and forth regarding the camera, and, allowing the cameras. So the other thing that the defense is using here is a witness. They're calling it an expert witness who they're going to have testify. So they've released another motion here. And what the defense is asking is they're asking for permission to allow a witness to testify via a Zoom conference. And they mention the witness's name here in the document, and they're saying that this witness is important to support our argument regarding this, and we're requesting that they can testify through Zoom because they can't come to Idaho. And so they're still waiting to hear back for that. I'm assuming they're going to allow that. And then they're saying, hey, if we can't do it that way, can we please postpone until we can have her come in and testify? Because they're saying this person is going to testify to information that supports their argument regarding the media coverage of the case, right? That negative media coverage that they're talking about. So I'll tell you, I'm not going to focus on who the person is. Summer, thank you so much for the 20. Thank you. I'm not going to focus so much on who the person is that's going to testify, but more the company that they're from. And this will explain what this witness is going to talk about when they're supporting the defense here. So keep in mind, they're not necessarily supporting Bryan here. What this person's going to talk about is they're going to talk about data and how data is measured, and social media and things like that are measured, and how they can track the popularity of certain topics, tie those into different media platforms, and kind of measure that. And that's what this person is going to talk about, that they're requesting this Zoom conference to approval for. And this person works for a company called TrueScope. So let me expand this for you. And I'll try to blow that up the best I can so you can see it. Let's go like this. So again, this witness is going to speak to the media coverage of the case. And they're actually going to be able to talk about things like whether it's positive or negative conversation around the case, headlines and things like that. So they're a media measurement company, and what they're doing here is they have basically, an application where you can go in and you can search a topic. So you could type in Bryan Kohberger, for example, and it would pull up for you different trends on the topic. And so this person is going to be able to come in here and they're going to show data on the Bryan Kohberger media coverage that's going to support what the defense is saying on all these negative and mean things are being said about Bryan. And look at this, and they're going to prove it right through this expert on media and media insights, essentially. So this person is, I think they're a vice president of this company, and they're going to speak to, the coverage and kind of what's kind of been going around out there about the case, and that's going to support the defense and their argument to keep the cameras out. I don't think it's good for them when they show Bryan in court and everybody's analyzing him. He's not looking good in those videos, in my opinion. He's not looking like an innocent person, and like I said earlier, we're looking for that. We're looking for that innocent, that sign of innocence, but we're just not. I'm not seeing it at this point. I mean, how many of you would be able to sit in jail for a year for this crime? With just be cool with, like, you know what, I'm going to trust you, lawyer, you're going to get me out. I'm innocent, I'm innocent, I could pass a lie detector test right now. We could tell law enforcement it wasn't me, but I'm cool. I'm going to sit here. We'll just let it play out. If I'm convicted, we'll appeal and, we'll get through it. I'm okay with that. And just, Put a 1 if that's you could do that. Put a 2 if you'd be like, hell no, I'm innocent. Get me out of here. Whatever it takes. You know, wouldn't you be doing something? Lift the gag order. We need to get the word out. They got the wrong guy, everybody. There's a killer out there. Somebody else did this. Let's get that gag order lifted. Lawyer, why are you fighting to keep the gag order? Let's lift it. Let's let them hear my voice. I'm innocent. Is that happening?